Hey, it's Nikki Thompson, and you're listening to Tea with Nikki. Embrace your sexual energy. And today I have put together the recording from a live workshop I hosted last week. Now, this was an amazing workshop that I did inside an online conference. And I thought this would be the perfect place to share this. If you are doing the washing, going on a walk, or in the car, you can listen in to this workshop. And if you would like any more information that I mentioned in the episode, you can find all of the links in the show notes below. So go and check those out. And I really hope you enjoy this episode. Before I get into it, I also want to let you know that I have got a free book club starting up this month in February. It's called the Sexploration Book Club, and each month we do a new book all about different elements of tantra, self-pleasure, intimacy, connection, orgasms, relationships, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's going to be a really great conversation. We're going to dive deeper into the conversation around sex and pleasure and life. I think you're going to love it. So again, if you want to join in, it's part of my free group on Facebook, and the link will be in the show notes below. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this workshop, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, it's Nikki Thompson, and welcome to the One Habit Workshop. So thank you so much for having me in this amazing online conference, and thank you for joining me. As you're joining, I would love for you to tell me where you are from, where you're tuning in from at the moment. And if you are watching the replay, I would love for you to put hashtag replay in the comments below and let me know what your takeaways are as you come through this workshop. Now, I'm planning that this is going to be around half an hour or so. So give yourself some time, and also you may want to take some notes, but the replay will be available for a little while. So you'll have time to come back and watch it again if you want to. So first of all, I'm just going to let you know who I am, what I'm about. And I have been a sexual development coach or sexual energy mentor. There's so many different names for what I do for a little while now, and I have been in the online marketing world for a very long time. So I originally started doing Facebook ads for companies and growing online businesses and doing massive launches. And the thing that kind of kept coming back to me was that I was doing great in business, but my personal life was out of whack and my confidence was out of whack, and I felt so exhausted, so drained all of the time. So one of the things that happened for me around 4 years ago, hello Chelsea, around 4 years ago, I was breastfeeding my daughter, my third child, and I was in a space of just feeling so exhausted, like beyond exhausted. I had no idea who I was anymore, and I just felt like, the days were molding into the nights and molding into the days, and it was just like, oh my goodness, what am I doing with my life? And wow, this is really bright. Hang on. Whoop. It keeps going brighter. There we go. Now you can see me properly without being blinded. Okay. So one of the things that happened was during this particular night, I was scrolling on social media, and one of the things that came up, because I would just be refreshing constantly while I was feeding, was this woman had written an article about a 30-day orgasm challenge. Now, I was to be honest, I was blushing. I think I was blushing in the dark, because for me, that was just so foreign for me. And so I was intrigued, though, because I had nothing else to read at that time of the night. And I read this orgasm challenge article and realized how much of the article was actually about having more energy, feeling more confident in her body, all of these other things besides the actual orgasms, besides the sexual focus. And for me, over time, I decided to kind of take part in my own way. I had grown up as the good girl. Hi, Trish. I'd grown up as the good girl. I'd done all of the right things. You know, I'd gone to high school, got good grades, gone to university, got married, had children, bought the house, had the dog, you know, the whole lot. And I was just feeling really exhausted and really out of whack, so disconnected from myself. I just didn't know what was going on. And I just didn't want to keep going, but I had no idea how to get out of this. And so I started to look at this orgasm challenge as a bit of an opportunity. Now, at the time I was married, we're no longer married, and I was hiding it from everybody. Like, I felt so nervous at the idea of masturbating. Like, oh my goodness, what am I, you know, I shouldn't be doing this, you know. And this whole belief around that a woman shouldn't masturbate when she's married was a huge one for me, because I'm feeling as though the beliefs and the stories that I'd been told and that I'd really clung to was that if you're married, then the sex with your husband should be enough to satisfy you, and that's it. And so for me, this was something that I kind of kept hidden for a little while until I started to have more energy, until I started to feel really good about myself, until things started to shift slowly but surely over time. And what I noticed, it was that it was like this dramatic shift in not my libido, not, you know, the orgasms. That was a great bonus, but it was really about really connecting back in with who I was and what did I want in my life. And so things started to shift a lot from that point. And this is why I do the work that I do today, because a lot of our beliefs, what society tells us, the way that we are raised as women, is that we should be a good girl, that sex is taught sex should be in marriage and all this kind of stuff, which I'm grateful that is slowly moving away. But it's really about sex for me, and the message that I share is that it's about our own pleasure. And there are so many beliefs that we need to kind of peel back and work through around what sex is and what it is that we want from our bodies, what it is that we want from sex. And when we can do that, we can start to really reconnect with our physical self. And then we can really connect on a deeper level with our spiritual self as well. So sexual development, like personal development, professional development, is a core element that has been missing for so long, because sexual conversations have always been very taboo. And that's something that I have a massive vision of, destigmatizing that and removing that as a taboo topic to discuss, and to create a beautiful space where women can have these conversations. And even now, I do a lot on social media. I do a lot, I have a podcast, and I have a lot of different ways that I connect with women online. However, it's always private messages or emails and things like that people are asking questions, because it's still difficult, you know, especially if you're posting on social media on my main page or as a friend of mine, everyone's going to see that. And so people still struggle with that kind of element. But it's, we're slowly moving forward, and I'm seeing so many more women who are coming out being sexual coaches or working with women through sexual experiences and sexual beliefs that they can work through. And this is starting to shift. This is starting to become more available, more seen and more talked about, which is really exciting. So the one habit is really tuning into yourself. That is the one habit that we need to master. And the way that I encourage women to do that, and my clients and women in my programs and on social media who are listening to my message, is through self-exploration, through sexual exploration, and they're reconnecting with your physical body. And when we can reconnect with our physical body, we can start to go in and tune in, and this will become our default habit. So we talk about, there's meditation, and there's so many different ways that we can tune into our soul and tune in. But we often, in a state of stress or a state of, a belief is like blocking us from making great decisions, we don't turn to tuning into our soul. We turn to the external messages of family, friends, society, social media, mainstream media that's all telling us what we should be doing. And so what my work is all about is helping you master the one habit to help that become your default setting so that you tune in to make those decisions, tune in, and then have the courage to go for that. So we often are taught to tune into ourselves, to tune into our soul, to reconnect with our physical self, listen to our intuition, listen to our gut. There's so many different ways of saying it. But when it comes to the crunch, we can listen, but we often don't take the action of what it's telling us to do. So our gut might be telling us, no, don't date that guy, or, you need to be more open with your social posts, or, take it easy on yourself today. Let's just have some space. We need some rest. All of these things might be coming up, but if we don't have the courage to take action on that, then it's, we haven't finished the work. We're never going to finish the work, because our intuition, the more we start to tune in, the more that we have that as our default setting, the more often we're going to start to, our soul's going to want us to expand even further and even further and further again and further again. And we're going to have to continue to have the courage to listen to what that is saying and to take action from that place. And so the one habit is really about tuning in and understanding what it is that you really want. When we start to get to this point, we're going to start to hit different layers of beliefs that we've absorbed since we were a baby. We're going to have messages and beliefs that were there from our parents, from siblings, from extended family, teachers, employers, social media, just religion, culture, all of these different little belief layers on top of who we really, really are. And so it's about working through that. And there's so many different strategies that you can use. And I love to use tapping as one of them. But I also love to use orgasm rituals, so self-pleasure practices, where we can actually tune into ourself, because when we often are living in a space day to day in our minds, right? So we're always in our heads. We've got thousands of things on our to-do list, and we've got thousands of thoughts going through our head. Even when we're trying to go to sleep, it's like, okay, I need to get groceries, but okay, I need more dishwashing tablets, or I need this. It's like constantly thinking, right? But when we are having in our self-pleasure practice, masturbating, or even with a partner, or partners, whatever you're into, it's about getting out of our heads and back into our bodies. And by doing that, we can start to, see that as an amazing practice of really tuning in and listening to our bodies. So from my experience, and the women that I work with as well, we cannot have an orgasm if we're thinking about our shopping list. We can't have an orgasm if we're thinking about what cleaning needs to be done. We can't have an orgasm when we are thinking of all of the things that need to be done, which is a constant state of our mind, right? And so a self-pleasure practice is a way that we can start to tune out of our heads and back into our bodies. But we have the way that I work with women is setting that intention. And this is something you can do. You don't need to work with anybody to do this to start out with. If you want to take things further, by all means, get in touch, because I really would love to help women with this kind of thing. But you can do this on your own, right? So what I want you to think about is, creating a beautiful space that can reduce the mental clutter. So if this is quite new to you, or even if you want to kick it up a notch, I've got a couple of tips for those who are experienced but want to take it to another level. If this is new, I suggest you find a way that you can make it super relaxing. I was talking to a beautiful woman the other day. She had 2 young children but had never really masturbated. She'd been in a very beautiful, is still in a beautiful marriage, but wants to look at incorporating a self-pleasure practice, but was nervous and didn't really know where to start, and just could not do this on her own. So she was asking for tips, and the biggest tip I always give women is that you need a locked door, especially if you have children, because the anxiety of someone walking in is going to stop you straight away, just the idea of people walking in. Other things to relax is getting into the shower, putting on some nice music. You don't have to do all of these things. It depends on what you want to do. For me, the biggest thing is having a clean bedroom. So every morning when I wake up, I tidy my bedroom because I don't want it to be cluttered. Because if I'm having sex with my partner later, if I'm having a solo session, if I see lots of crap all around my bedroom, I'm going to be thinking, oh my God, I need to do that washing. I need to do this. Oh man, I could really clean that ensuite. All of these things are going to go through my head. And so this is what I want you to think about. What things, when you go to sit down or lay down on your bed, I do encourage women to start on the bed. You can do it anywhere. You could do it in the bath. You could do it wherever you like. But think about it before you get settled into it. What kind of things are going through your mind about what could interrupt this session for you? And what we want to do is try to eliminate those or reduce those as much as possible and really feel into it. So it's about touch, what feels good for you. This is all about you. And we have very few of those moments in our life that it's just about us. What do we like right now? And this is why this is such a beautiful practice that is not very, it's never discussed. I mean, even with my best friends, I never discussed masturbation. I didn't even know women masturbated until I started having these conversations in my late 20s because I didn't. And I just assumed other women weren't doing it. And then it was this whole kind of world was opening up around different sexual experiences. And so when we can start to have a self-pleasure practice, the point of it is not actually to have an orgasm necessarily. That's a great bonus, but you don't have to have that pressure on yourself that you have to finish. The whole point is to really disconnect from the thoughts in your mind and really reconnect with your physical body. That's the point. So what we want to do is start to look at ways that feel really good for us. So it could be touch. It could be getting a favorite toy. It could be music, essential oils, whatever it is that you like. There's a number of toys that I recommend for women. If you do want those recommendations, please just send me a message and I'm happy to send those through to you. So if you want to take it up a notch as women who want to kind of incorporate more of a sensual experience, we can talk about incorporating mirrors and things like that to heighten that experience. But the key is creating this practice is going to help us to really get back into our physical bodies, because quite often we're not there and we're always in our heads. And that's why this is part of that sexual development and sexual exploration that I am so passionate about. So that is just one element of the one habit. So once we can start to do that, and you might not even be there yet. We might just be looking at some of the beliefs that you have around, that you're not good enough. These are my ones. You're not good enough. You need to lose weight before you step out into social media. You need to put your children as your highest priority. There's not enough time to take care of your health and wellness. Sex is just like that. Not everyone has sex that, it's only in your early 20s that sex is good. And I have to say that in my early 20s, sex is okay, but it only gets better and better with age personally. So all of these beliefs that we need to start writing them down to become aware of them, because if we're not aware of them, they're going to keep playing over and over and over in our minds. And this will hinder making decisions based on what the life that we really want is all about. I've just muddled up my words there, but it's going to hinder the way that we want to live our life, because it's always going to make decisions based on that place as opposed to making decisions based on where we really want to be in our life. So this is one of the things that is so important, but it's rarely discussed. With our sexual development, this is such a beautiful pathway to transformation. It's such a beautiful pathway to creating better habits in our life, because when we have really reconnected with our physical bodies, we want to take better care of it. We then have more energy. We then have better mental clarity. We then want to make better decisions with our life, and then things start to really expand from this space. But until we're ready for that, it's still like it feels like we're sludging through mud. Like, it's just so much harder than it needs to be. This work is never going to be finished. Like, we never get to a point and think, okay, awesome, tick that off my list. Sexual development is 100% done. I'm sorted. It's just never like that. And that's why we need to continue to work on it and explore and have an open mind to what it is that we want in our life. Now, in saying this, we don't have to do this on our own. We can do it if we're in a long-term relationship, doing it with our partner and having that conversation. But what I found with some women is that one of the beliefs that I had was that growing up, I always felt as though my pleasure, sexual pleasure, or my body was more about my partner's pleasure than my own. And therefore it was about him finishing more so than me. And it wasn't until, I started to grow up and started to research and explore that, in fact, me finishing was so important to them as well. And it was a beautiful experience and journey together to find out how the other person, what turned them on, what made them finish, what made them really enjoy this experience. And so there was kind of this expectation that I needed to my body was just for his pleasure. And this applies to all sorts of relationships. It's not just about a man and a woman. It can be any type of relationship with multiple partners, with single partner, or on your own. But it's about this journey, and it's about being open. And so women who have tried to do this kind of journey with their partner and never trying to do it on their own for whatever reason, often they still have that belief and that expectation that they're not putting themselves first in the experience. And that's part of that reconnection with our physical body. And learning about what it is that we really enjoy can help us have better connection with partners. And so this is a really, it's a beautiful journey to kind of explore. And sometimes our partner's not ready for that. So it's a matter of having conversations if you are in a relationship. It's a matter of tuning in and what feels good for you. So it's definitely what I recommend is solo sessions to kind of get started and start to work through some of these beliefs. But it's not always the case. Again, there's no right or wrong here. It's about exploration and seeing what works for you. Just have a quick drink. So I would love to know, when it comes to just this whole conversation, what comes up for you? What do you want to explore? What do you enjoy doing right now? What do you want to incorporate into your own sexual development journey? Because this is the kind of stuff that I think women, we want to start having these conversations, because it's so, so important. If you aren't able to have an orgasm, and I had a very beautiful friend of mine who hadn't been able to have an orgasm she was in her early 30s at this point. And I did a lot of research. This was before I was even doing this work, because I just felt like that's not okay. Like, it's not okay that she really wanted this, but she just didn't know where to turn to. She just didn't know how to make that happen. And through a lot of research, I was able to collate a few resources for her. And I remember she called me one night. I'm in bed, I was asleep, and she rarely called me at that time of night. And she said, I just did it. And that feeling of excitement was there, because she had been able to overcome a lot There was a lot of reasons why she wasn't able to orgasm. And this really propelled her forward in her own confidence around her body, her own connection with her body. And this story, like that whole story, that whole experience with her was just this most incredible feeling for me, because I see her now in love with her body. But she had stopped. Thanks, Chelsea. This totally relate to the story about it being about the other person's pleasure. Yes. And, I have so many friends who have really opened up to me since I've been doing this work with publicly. And yeah, so many women have, even in marriages where they have such a beautiful marriage, but they still feel like they couldn't masturbate because they're married. And that whole feeling as though they shouldn't be having that kind of pleasure on their own, that it needs to be really with their husband or really with their wife or whoever they're married to. And this is one of the things that it's just these beliefs that are perpetuated because we don't talk about it. And we don't talk about it because it's taboo. And then the problems just increase. The problems increase and the problems last for a long time. So then we were raised by women who didn't really know or have a lot of sexual development education. My mum sure didn't. Like, it was all very much like, this is what happens in the book. My mum unfortunately passed away a long time ago, but I never got to have these questions before getting married or before having some serious relationships in my life. And so it was really, I didn't really know who to turn to. My friends were also raised by mothers who were in a similar boat. And I didn't want to be raising my daughter and my sons in that same kind of situation. And so I feel this strength in knowing that I'm going to be having these conversations with my children. My children are too young at the moment, but when they're older, about pleasure, because this is what our bodies are also for. It's not just about other people's pleasure. Our bodies are for our own pleasure. And it's like this belief, if you're telling someone who doesn't have any of these kind of limiting beliefs around sexual pleasure, if you're telling them, oh no, my body's only for other person's pleasure, like this is a belief I have, they would just think we're crazy, right? But it's because it's like, what do you mean? Like, sex is meant to be fun for everybody. But it's often not. And then there's a lot of trauma around that. And so when women have severe sexual trauma, it's definitely a place for more therapy, like qualified therapists, which I'm not. So that's where I usually get them to work with someone in that way, because there are other elements at play there more than what I work with. So keep that in mind. But it's all about reconnecting with our physical self, because then when we are reconnected and we are solid in our bodies and we know what these feelings are, we can start to really feel into our bodies as our default setting. I talk about our default setting because we want it to be a default setting when shit hits the fan and we need to make a decision, or things are stressful and we need to make a decision. We want to be able to feel into it and know what feelings are in our body. Is this fear, or is this kind of like, oh my gosh, excitement / nervousness? Is this like genuine, okay, I need to protect myself, or just like, oh my God, I'm just too scared? Is this right or is this wrong? Another experience I've had myself is I went to a sensual temple, which is a temple where there's a lot of play, essentially. So there's both men and women in this temple. It's a very safe, fun place to be. It's definitely not for newbies, but it was a really beautiful experience. But one of the kind of activities that we did early on was sitting in front of another person that we didn't know, someone brand new, and they would ask us to do something to them or to do something to us. It could be sexual or not, it didn't matter. But what we had to do was tune into our bodies to feel like if that was a yes or a no. And here I was in my mid-30s, sitting there thinking, holy shit, I've never ever thought about what does a yes or a no feel like when it comes to this kind of, physical contact. I'd never ever thought about it before. So here I was sitting in that space. Thoughts that were coming up was like, oh, but what if they don't like me? What if I say no and they're annoyed? What if I say yes and they think I'm a slut? Like, all of these thoughts were coming up, and this was part of their whole practice, was to work through some of these thoughts that come up, and to also feel into it. Was this a yes or a no? And what were we saying? What were we verbalizing? Were we verbalizing what we actually felt? Or were all the external beliefs at play making us say something different? So this is quite an exercise to do. And I think it's a beautiful exercise to do even with young children, to learn what does a yes or a no feel like when it comes to something that they want to do. Putting their hand up at school can feel really nerve-wracking, but it's like getting them to listen to their bodies. What an amazing experience. And I can't believe it didn't happen until I was so much older. And this is something that I love teaching women about, because once we can really connect with our physical bodies, we can start to feel what these emotions are that our body is telling us. And that is just going to become so much easier and easier and easier. And we start to make decisions from a place of confidence, of decisiveness, of trust, so that we can make better decisions, quicker decisions, and move forward with our life, rather than sitting like, oh, did I make the right decision? Did I not? We start to overthink, we start to doubt, we start to go back and forth around every decision that we make, because we don't trust ourselves. And this is all the beautiful work that I love to do. So I really, really hope you got a lot out of today's session. I'm always open for conversations, messages. You can come and find me through my social media. So you can find me through my personal page. I also have my public page and my website, nikkithompson.com, which I will put in the comments below. But one of the things I do want to invite you into is it's a free 10-day orgasm challenge. So it goes on to a little bit about what we were talking about today earlier on in the piece. So the 10-day orgasm challenge is all about, it's like a series of 10 videos. You can do it at your own pace. And I take you through 10 days of journaling prompts, of different ways to help you with self-pleasure practices and setting up those rituals. So I think you'll really enjoy it if you're at that stage of wanting to kind of step forward and expand a bit more into your sexual development. So thank you so much, and thank you, Chelsea, for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I will be around for as long as you need me to answer questions and help you in this journey. So feel free to send me a private message if you don't want to ask a question on here. But this is a beautiful space. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.